You can forget a lot of things, Foster Care Nation, but never forget this. You're listening to Unparalleled Studios.
I signal.
Foster Care Nation, listen up. This is
Foster Care and Unparalleled Journey.
strength for the powerless, courage for the fearful, hope and healing for wounded hearts. Hello and welcome back to Foster Care, an Unparalleled Journey with Jason.
And Amanda.
See, I told you guys, she is still alive. I don't have her, killed and hidden in a freezer in the basement or anything. We just don't have any appointments today, so she showed up today.
Woohoo!
Yeah, welcome back for after the long hiatus. Today we have CJ playing with us today. How you doing today, CJ?
I'm amazing, guys. How are you?
I'm so weirded out calling the wrong person CJ because, as I mentioned to you before we started, that's my son's name. And so, yeah, I'm going, I feel weird calling the wrong person CJ, but there are, I guess, more than one CJ in the world. You know, the only other CJ I ever met was when I was in the military. He was a pararescue jumper, which we affectionately call PJs, and he was CJ the PJ.
Hi.
There's a few nights of drinking I'm pretty certain he was involved in, and we don't tell those stories anymore, even though the statute of limitations has probably run out. So, yeah, it's good to have you today, CJ. But your story it's an interesting one. So why don't you just tell us how you got started in the foster care system?
My dad married my stepmother. I was about 7 years old. It was 1978. Before they even married, her and I had a adversarial, to say the least, relationship. It never improved. And I was 14. I come home one day. She started in on some stuff, and it just progressively got worse. She shoved me into a refrigerator. I picked a frying pan up and smacked her upside the head with it.
Ooh.
And I was just like, all right, I got to go. My dad's a truck driver. He's been a truck driver for 52 years. So he was never home, essentially. He would be home maybe 2 days a month. So I was kind of stuck with her and just dealing with whatever the fallout of that was. And I had a friend who rode the bus. He lived about a mile down the road, and me being 14, having no understanding of anything really, I thought, you know what? I don't want to live here anymore. I'm going to go live with Jerry because he's in a foster home. I'll just live there with him. So I went down the road and I knocked on the door, and he got his foster dad. And I said, can I live here? And he goes, well, it doesn't work that way. You have to. So the worker come out and picked me up, and I explained everything. My dad had come home that night. The worker went down to speak to my dad, and my dad basically demanded she leave the property and just, wanted nothing to do with it. So I was placed in a foster home, not that particular one, but another one. And I was there for about 4 years, almost just under 4 years. I was in foster care. I think I was in 28 foster homes in 4 years, somewhere around there. It was a ton. I was a horrible kid. I had the mindset of, if you don't care about me, I don't care about you. So I was as disruptive and destructive as you could be. It was me lashing back at a system that didn't give a crap about me, basically. And I regret it now that I didn't take opportunities that were available to me, but I was angry, and The one thing I've always been very, very good at is destruction. So, yeah.
Okay, so you were a kid though, and that doesn't make you a bad kid. That makes you a kid that was looking for connection and love. That's not a bad kid.
Yeah, my biggest problem is I have a 156 IQ. I read 700 words a minute. So I was extremely bored most of the time because I was smarter than half of the people that I had to deal with on a day-to-day basis, as far as the workers, the just people in general. And even being in foster care, the very first lawyer they gave me, child advocate, he was completely worthless. He didn't give two craps. He wouldn't listen to anything I asked or said. And I demanded to act as my own attorney. And the judge thought I was insane, but he said, I'll give you a chance. And I spent the next 3 weeks at the library researching everything I could about probate law and whatnot. And I acted as my own attorney. And I did well enough that Judge Preisel essentially allowed me to act as my own advocate. I had to have an adult advocate with me, but I was allowed to ask questions, and I was allowed to question people where the majority wouldn't get that opportunity, because I demonstrated that I had a knowledge that most people didn't have. So
that's kind of amazing, because most kids don't get to advocate for themselves. Right. Nobody's listening to what they have to say, and essentially they're lost.
Yeah.
So that's really neat that the judge was able to look past some of that and be like, okay, let's do this. That's when you have a judge that kind of cares about what he's doing.
Yeah. Judge Preisel was an amazing judge. He was a judge for probably 48 years or so before he retired. An amazing person. And he did so much for kids in that county where I was. But he had his own way of doing things, and you definitely had to demonstrate to him, and you had to prove yourself. It wasn't just given. I remember when I took the GED, I angered him greatly because I had been through so many foster homes. I wasn't going to graduate. I was so far behind that when I started in this county, got put into a private foster care company. So I was moving all over the state of Michigan. I was in probably 7 different counties over the 4 years. And by the time I ended up back in the original county, they said, you should have this many credits, but you only have a third of those. You're not going to graduate. I said, let me get my GED. Judge Preisel said, okay, great. We're going to put you in these classes. These are preparatory classes to prepare you for it. I went the first day, read through the entire book, was bored after an hour, asked the teacher, can I take the test now? She said, oh, you can't take the test now. You've only been here 1 day. I said, oh, I'm ready to take the test. It's impossible. You never, ever pass it. So when she dismissed us for the day, I walked down to the adult education building and I said, I'm here to take the GED test. And the woman was like, okay, here's the first test. And I took the first test. It took me 20 minutes. I took the second test. I took the third test. I took the fourth test. Then I went back the next morning and I took the final test, which was the writing part. They called Judge Preisel to tell him that I had taken all of the tests over a 4-hour period. He called me and he was furious. You're going to fail all of these tests. You didn't allow yourself to prepare, all of this crap. And I was like, look, I passed the test. I promise you. That's impossible. No, there's no way you could. 3 days later, the test come back. Not only did I pass the GED, out of a 65 score that you could achieve at that time, I had achieved a 63.7. average score.
That's a decent score, I think.
Yeah.
It was the top 1% in the nation of that year.
63.7 is probably what my average grade was in most of my classes in high school.
So when Judge Pryzel seen the score, he was kind of like, did you cheat? And I was like, how did I cheat? I was sitting in a room with 7 people watching me, you know? And he was just, again, he was like, you need to just go do something. You are too smart to, and that was always my problem. I was too smart for my own good. And I joined the military because what else are you going to do at 18 years old when you have nowhere to go, no money, and a GED? And even joining the military was a debacle because I took the ASVAB. I scored a 91 on the ASVAB. And they immediately said, you cheated. I didn't cheat. There's no way a 10th grader, or there's no way an 18-year-old with a 10th grade education and a GED got a 91 on the ASVAB. I was in a room with 100 other applicants. How do you think I cheated? So the captain of the recruiting company had to come down, and he put me in a closet in the recruiting office and made me retake the test. He's like, okay, well, obviously you didn't cheat. You have to take it again. So they took me back to Lansing, took it a second time, and I scored a 90. All right, good. Here's your job. You can do infantry or cannon fighter. And I was like, okay, not interested. And I went to walk away. Of course, that pissed him off because you know how much money we've spent? I don't care.
It sounds like a military mentality, though.
Well, you know, and they're like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, something that's not going to get me killed. And they're like, well, you only have a GED, but I have a 91 ASVAB. Well, what does that matter? Because if I was joining in the Navy, I could work on a nuclear submarine. If I was joining the Air Force, I could fly a plane. In the Army, you're telling me I can go out and crawl through the mud and get killed. There's got to be something better that you guys have than that. Well, we offered you cannon fired. That's still getting shot at. Like, you know, it was something that isn't going to involve me having to go to some crappy country, stand in the heat, and get shot at. And we went back and forth for 2 days. And I just refused to take a crappy job. And finally, they were like, we can make you a Patriot missile systems operator. What the hell is that? So they showed me all this cool Top Gun type crap. I was like, oh yeah, this looks cool. Shooting down scuds, you know, you get your own. Yeah, that was a that was a excuse my language, but that was a bullshit pitch that they gave me. So I still ended up in a faraway place.
With people getting
shot at.
Yeah, it's funny because our oldest son, CJ, when he was a little kid, my brother had his what was it he said exactly? He said, that boy's smart. He's real smart. I don't know if he's cure cancer smart or build a bomb in the basement smart, but he's smart.
Yeah.
And he ended up going off to the military. And
I was both of those.
when he went to the recruiter's office, I told him, don't go there without me. Like I've been in the military. I know this game, right? And right. Sergeant White, bless his soul, he was trying to get a body in a uniform, and he was trying to sell him on some sort of missile repair systems. And I told him, I said, be smarter than your old man, bud. Go do something where you can serve your country, and when you're done, your country can serve you. And so he ended up he went off to a couple schools and ended up with his LPN degree. And right now he is making mad money as a nurse in the civilian world since he's been out. But you know, yeah, because the job I did, I could go do it in the civilian world, but I had to go to like Fort Meade, Maryland, and work a quarter mile underground, and I can't answer questions like how was your day at the end of the work day. So I went, no thanks, I don't want to do this as a civilian. I had my time in, it was fun and all that, but yeah, so the military has a lot of amazing options if you push through, you know, some of the BS that they hide it behind. But yeah, it sounds like you had an interesting time. Did you spend any time overseas, or were you in country most of the time?
I was in country the whole time. I was at Fort Sill, playing around in the dirt and whatnot. I ended up being in trouble more than I was actually doing my job because, one, being a natural born comedian, I let my mouth get me into trouble that I shouldn't have gotten into. And a lot of the sergeants hated me because, they're having a sergeant mentality. What do you think? I'm stupid? Really want me to answer that? Is that a rhetorical question?
Yeah. So, you tell me to be honest. Are you sure you want me to be honest? Yeah. Let's not count Article 15s up here because they told me that those went away at the end of the training phases. So hopefully that there's no record left of those in my history. I don't know about you, but
Yeah, like I managed an honorable discharge. How I managed it, I don't know, but from day one, I did basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey. And when we got to Fort Dix, this was in 1989. So it was the old Army, not the new Army. The bus hadn't even stopped moving yet. And about 12 drill sergeants jumped on the bus and they were screaming and people were climbing over the seats and out over each other. And I was just sitting there perfectly calm, just laughing. And the recruiter finally got to me and he's screaming at me. And I'm just looking at him with this almost diaphragmal look from Full Metal Jacket. And I'm laughing at him because the stuff he's saying is hilarious. And he immediately, he's like, we've got a medical case over here. This one thinks everything is funny. And I was like, dude, you're fucking hilarious. And get off the bus and they run us through all of this stuff. And I didn't flip out like a lot of people because, one, I was prepared for it. Having the uncle that had gone through Vietnam and seen Full Metal Jacket 100 times, I knew what was going to happen. I got into trouble because I didn't overreact or I didn't freak out like they said. So they thought that I didn't care or that I was just being a smart ass. And I didn't mean to be, but it's just kind of who I was. And, I reacted back and not always in the best way, but I made it through.
I imagine that as someone who has, you've been through that many homes in the foster system, you probably already understood what chaos looked like and learned to operate inside of that chaos pretty well.
Yeah, it wasn't anything to me. Like I lived out of a bag. I would go to foster homes and they would say, "Oh, there's your dresser over there. Put your clothes in a dresser." No, I'm good. I'm not going to be here that long. What do you mean by that? Trust me, and I won't be here long enough to put my clothes in a dresser. I'll just keep them in my backpack to where, in a few days or a couple of weeks when y'all are sick of me, I'll just be ready to go. And I had that mentality for a long time, like even well into adulthood. I still got my Army rucksack and I had jeans rolled up and the boots in the side and shirts folded and I could pick that rucksack up at any time and let's go. I'm ready to go. So
my Alice pack is right over there. I don't have any clothes packed in it because she would kill me if I tried to leave her with all these crazy kids. But yeah, I feel you.
As long as you take the kids with you, you can go. No, I'm just playing. But going back to something, you said you had been in 20 some odd homes and then, then you age out and, it's like you said, what do you have? Where do you go? And so many kids are faced with that today, and that's part of what's wrong with our system. And we have so many kids from the system that, end up on the streets, homeless, no one to care about them.
Yeah.
And a huge percentage of those kids end up in the criminal justice system. Yeah. Did you find yourself there or did you manage to?
Oh yeah. I've never went to prison, but I've definitely, spent my fair share of nights in county jail for the most ridiculous of things. Even when I was in foster care, I would get kicked out of foster homes, not even meaning to. Or I would get suspended from school over things that I didn't mean to get suspended over. And it was the most ridiculous stuff. And then foster parents would overreact to it. Well, we can't deal with this. And you go to the new foster home, and it's just like, I'm not trying to be disruptive. Like, there was one instance, I was in Clarkston, Michigan. And this was probably my 9th or 10th foster home. People were really nice. I actually liked it there. I was trying to stay out of trouble. I got suspended within 30 minutes of starting school because when we walked through the door, the first thing I noticed, the principal was a doppelganger for Tackleberry from Police Academy.
I know who that is. You're bringing out the 80s in me.
Yeah, like when I walked through the door, I just looked at him and was like, oh, crap. And I went to walk away and the kid walked past me and he's like, he hit me and went like this. And he goes, yeah, we call him Tack. And I was like, I'm going to get in so much trouble with this. So I went and I got breakfast. The lunchroom was kitty corner from the office. I sat down, was eating my breakfast. Some girl come over, sat down, started talking to me. We were having a conversation. Of course, the rich yuppie kid had, the Zach from Bayside had to come over and, who was I, and asking stupid questions. And I told him to piss off. And he slammed his hand down on my chocolate milk and just milk everywhere. So I jumped up and kicked him in the face. And I broke a school record for being suspended before you actually even started school. So, but
a couple kids that would be impressed with that record.
I come back from that, and I was there for a good amount of while. I was there almost 2 months and hadn't gotten in any more trouble. I was in gym class, and at the end of gym class, our teacher always allowed us to kind of stand outside of the gym by where the showcases were, the trophies and all of that. We had a sub one day and we come out of the shower and we were standing out there and she come out, she had an attitude. What are you doing in the hallway? We're waiting for the bell. I didn't say you could stand in the hallway. Okay. We didn't know we had to. We stand here every single day. This is our routine. Get back into the gym. I looked at my friend and I go, man, that sucks. She pulled me to the office. I want him suspended for insubordination. I'm looking at her like, are you serious? Like, I said, that sucks. So, of course, Tackleberry, because it was my second time, I'm suspending you for 10 days. Dude, are you serious? Like, 10 days for saying that sucks to a teacher. Like, bro, it's me. It's not even the worst thing I said before 8 a.m., okay? Like, come on, man. Like, he was adamant. So he called my foster mom. She come from work. Who'd you kick in the face this time? I said, I didn't touch anybody. I didn't do anything. So when he told her what happened, she was livid. She was so mad that he had pulled her out of work over something so ridiculous. She started cussing him out. But, had to drive me all the way back to the house and take the day off work and all this other crap. And it was just to the point where, diversions decided you're being too disruptive in this home. And I'm like, I've gotten into trouble twice in almost 3 months. Like, that's a record for me. Okay. No, you got to go to the new foster home. Okay, great. So you pack up, move down the road, and, it was just whatever. So I got used to it. Like, it was always some little thing that, I don't know, just, you could tell the majority of them in it were strictly about the money. And that was annoying. I had one foster home who she did not cook. Everything she bought was the frozen prepared meals. The banquet meals. And just when you were hungry, you got a banquet meal out of the freezer, and that's what you had for dinner. And I started cooking. I didn't say you could cook. Well, I'm sick of banquet meals, like buy some real food. I don't get paid enough to buy you real food. You shouldn't fucking be a foster parent. Excuse my language, but part of the requirement of being a foster parent is that you actually feed us. Well, I'm feeding you. No, you're not feeding us. You're buying garbage that costs, not even a tenth of what you're being paid to buy meals. Like frozen banquet meals do not meet the requirement of you should feed
they
a
don't meet the
kid.
requirements for what I'm going to eat, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm like, look, every once in a blue moon, I don't mind microwaving a banquet meal, but I don't want to eat it twice a day, 7 days a week.
Can't say as I blame you there. Yeah.
Yeah. So we ended up in a big fight over that. And I ended up being moved. And then there was the family who were the snake handling, ultra religious ones. And the requirement is if they went to church, you went to church. Okay, awesome. Went to church. I was perfectly fine in the back row. And then they busted out the rattlesnakes. I'm out. Lost me at rattlesnakes.
There's an old Jerry Clower bit where he's standing up in front of a church and talking, and they bring out the snakes, and he says he looks at the preacher and says, "Where is the back door?" He says, "We don't have a back door." He says, "Whereabouts would you like a back door?"
Yeah.
I'm in the same camp with you. I would have been gone.
I got home. I called Kendra. I'm like, I got to go. She goes, "Why?" I was like, "They're Pentecostal. What's wrong with that? They talk to snakes." She's like, "Excuse me?" I was like, "We went to church. They had rattlesnakes." Ken was like, "I'll be there in the morning." They ended up losing their foster care license because they didn't tell anyone that, hey, they were crazy snake handling hillbillies.
Yeah. I'm not one to give to anybody too much trouble over their personal belief systems, but I ain't going with you if y'all play with snakes in church. That's not my theory of any kind of test of faith. Because I'm with you. I don't run for anything, but that I'd make it an exception for that.
Yeah. Well, Kendra was like, well, I had no idea that they would be crazy hillbillies like that. And I was like, really? His name being Robert E. Lee. Did you kind of miss that? And she's like, excuse me? And I was like, his name is Robert E. Lee. She goes, oh, I didn't know that. He just goes by Bob. I was like, you didn't look on the application and see that his name was Robert E. Lee III. I didn't maybe give you pause that, Robert E. Lee from Louisiana.
Yeah.
Well, they're from Michigan. They're originally from Louisiana.
The only General Lee I really identify with is the car that used to fly through grain silos and stuff on TV on Saturday mornings, because, the Duke boys were right. All kinds of fun for a young guy like me. And
yeah, I mean, I love Dukes of Hazzard, and it wasn't really anything, but it was just, I mean, come on, there's certain things that even as a teenager, like, look, I'm not going to put myself in jeopardy for your craziness. I'm not going to starve for your craziness. I'm not going to be pushed around or treated like a second-class citizen because you choose to treat us like we're furniture here. And when I got towards the end of being in foster care, I was very lucky. I ended up with 2 foster homes back to back that were 2 of the most amazing set of foster parents. One, unfortunately, was killed in a car accident. So I moved to the final foster home. And the final foster home I was in, he was 76 and she was 72. They had been foster parents for 48 years.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and they had 165 foster kids. I was number 166. And of those 166 foster kids they had 120 of them had been special needs kids of some form. And they were phenomenal people. Just, I was so blessed. They're the ones who helped me find myself, put me on the right track, helped me get my GED, get into the Army. And if it wouldn't have been for them, I'd have gone to prison. There's no doubt in my mind. I would have self-destructed.
Now, do you have any contact with them at all or anything?
Unfortunately, they're both passed now. He was 76 at the time, and that was in 1989. So, I mean, they were pretty well beyond even, the age that you would even see a foster parent be. I don't think it's pretty common to see a 76-year-old foster parent. But they were amazing, and I had contact with them right up until their death. They actually left me a set of cabins in their will, and I lost the cabins to the state of Michigan because in the entire Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the state of Michigan decided to build a prison next to my property, which meant that because my cabin was within 500 yards of the fence line, I couldn't have any guns or ammunition on my property. I couldn't have any four-wheelers or recreational vehicles because they were all a hazard if there was a breakout. So what am I supposed to do with this property? Then it's useless to me. The state's like, well, we'll buy it from you. Awesome. How much are you going to give me? We'll give you $24,000. It's worth $120,000. Good luck with that. Are you going to try to fight the state of Michigan? They have a lot more attorneys than I had. So
yeah, there'd have been a lot more time in the law libraries learning how to fight the state, right?
Yeah. You don't win eminent domain cases. So I took my measly little $20,000 and I went away, and but I had contact with them right up until their death, and amazing people. So many lives that were changed because of them. So I thank God every day that he kind of, you went through all of this crap. Here's somebody that can save you from yourself and kind of put you on a positive path. So,
but that's what we want kids to hear. We want them to hear that there's people out there that care and are going to take the time, and unfortunately we don't hear that enough.
Yeah.
Kids.
My friend Steve is a foster parent, and him and his wife actually adopted a family of 5. Steve was friends with the father. He worked with them, and they were killed in a car accident, and they were getting ready to split the children up. And Steve said, we'll take them. You don't have a big enough house. Steve's like, fine, we'll build on. So they rented a bigger house while theirs was redone, and they went through all the process, and they, they've got 7 kids now in their house. And, Steve said, I never intended to be a foster parent, but I wasn't going to see these kids split up and shoved all over the place, So
well, and too often that happens with sibling groups. Even when it comes to a sibling group of 2, unfortunately, it happens so often because there's not homes. And when there are homes, they're already overcrowded. They don't have the room.
Right.
Because contrary to popular belief, you can't just have 20 or 30 foster kids. There's rules and there's regulations for every state.
Yeah. And a lot of them don't want teenage boys. Some of them only want girls. Some only want babies.
Yep.
I've seen horrible people and really great people in the system. It kind of is what it is. You take it in turn, but definitely need, I won't say the system is completely broken, but there's a lot of things about the system that need to be fixed and looked at on a different scale. And
you're right. I mean, there's some things that work, but there's a lot of things that don't.
Yeah.
And we got to get more people out there that are caring and paying attention to these things. Yeah.
And just more workers to handle the number of cases that, I remember when I had Kendra as my worker, Kendra had 139 cases that she handled. And you can't expect someone to handle 139 cases on a daily basis. There's just no human way to handle that many cases and know what is going on with every single one across the board.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we see the things that we do in the news and the kids that slip through the cracks. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't understand what the job of a caseworker is.
Right.
139 kids, that's 139 visits a month.
Yep.
That's not court papers. That's not
court appearances.
That's just
court appearances, scheduling doctor's appointments.
Yeah, that's not visitation with each kid's parents. Yeah. And unfortunately, our social workers are not paid anything.
Yep, and that's
and
exactly.
We can't keep them.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Is I've learned just enough to know that in our area, we're in Missouri, and in Missouri, I believe a caseworker makes 30-something thousand a year.
Like 32.
Yeah, on the low end. So,
where are you guys at in Missouri?
We're west of St. Louis a ways.
Okay, I lived in when I was in the National Guard. I was actually at Fort Leavenworth. I was in the Missouri National Guard, and I lived in Poplar Bluff, down in the Boot Heel.
Poplar Bluff.
That's all the way down in the Boot Heel, almost.
Way out there in the sticks.
Over by Cape Girardeau and Dexter and all of that. So.
Well, if you leave that and drive an hour or two west out into the middle of absolute nowhere, that's where Amanda's family comes from. We've been there a couple times, and it's a drive. But I
had a friend who lived in Rolla, so I'm familiar with.
I used to live in Rolla for a time.
Yeah, that is as close to a wrong turn movie as you are ever going to get if you get lost out that kind of way. Like not the people themselves, but just like the first time I drove up there.
I don't know. Some of the people are pretty questionable too.
Like the first time I drove up there, the only thing I could think of is, please God, don't let me get lost, because I swear to God, I've seen this in a wrong turn movie. Like, like
Banjo.
Like I swear I've seen that house in a horror movie. I don't know which one. I'm pretty sure I've seen that house in a horror movie. But,
So we're out here, even in rural Missouri, where there's not, the cost of living, the wages, and all that, isn't real high necessarily, but still $30,000 a year is not enough to sustain a family. And so they wonder why we have these caseworkers who have these huge caseloads. They work for about 6 months, get burned out, and go somewhere and do something else because they just can't live that life. It's too much.
And not only that, a lot of people don't think about it, but these caseworkers, they take their cases home. Mm-hmm. They internalize that trauma and feelings of hopelessness and not being able to do or help a child the way they feel like they should. And, I got to give mad props to the caseworkers. They're doing a job that is so completely hard, but the turnover is crazy, And
that's the thing right there is, the caseworkers, just like very much like being a CNA or being a nurse in like the NICU, they will tell you, when I did CNA training, they said, don't get attached to the patients. Don't get attached. Well, when you care for someone for 8 hours a day, every single day, it's impossible not to talk to them, not to get attached. When you're dealing with guys that were in World War II, they were in Vietnam, they had these incredible life experiences, incredible stories. You can't not get attached to them. And I had one gentleman who, he was like a grandfather to me, and I never intended him to be. But I came to work one day and he had passed, and it crushed me. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this every single day. That just too much mentally. And the woman was just like, well, I told you not to get attached to him. And I was like, you know what? You sit up in your tower doing your administrative duties. You're not out on this floor. You don't deal with it, the daily stuff.
Well, and everybody deserves somebody to care about them and to give them some dignity and some kindness. For a long time, I took care of 4 ladies with special needs and disabilities. I was in their home, every day to day. Those are my ladies, but they're not just my ladies. That's my family, and everybody deserves somebody to get attached. And as people, we crave that.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, the last foster home I was in, I had never worked with Special Olympics or anything in my life. And my knowledge of people with special needs or Down syndrome, anything like that, it was high school kids using derogatory terms and stuff like that. And one thing I was very good at in high school, I was very good at soccer. And when I got to that foster home, they had a guy there. He was about 22, 23 years old, but mentally he was like 12. And Mrs. Davis said, Mikey's team needs a soccer coach for their Special Olympics team. Can you coach the team? And I was like, I don't know the first thing about coaching a bunch of special needs kids to play soccer. I play at a competitive level. So I was like, you know what? I'll go watch them just to see whatever. And I went there, and it was the most life-changing thing that ever happened to me. The joy, the pure unadulterated love that they had for each other and for other people, it blew my mind. Like, here's this group of people who have all of these challenges, and they don't have a hateful bone in their body. They don't know how to be hateful. They don't know how to be anything other than perfectly content and happy. And I was like, you know what? I have to be the coach of this team, because I couldn't pass that opportunity up. And it really probably was the single most defining moment of my teenage life, is coaching them and learning unconditional love and unconditional support, and seeing the joy on their face when they learn to do something new. And it gave me a mentality like, look, if they can do it, I can do it. If they can smile through all of the challenges that life has thrown at them, I can smile more. I can laugh more. I can not take life so deadly serious. And it did change my life a lot. I was a lot more chill, I guess, after that. So I was very happy that was presented to me as
Sounds like you've had a lot of really interesting, life-changing experiences. I am kind of curious. So, did you ever have an opportunity or taken the opportunity to reconnect with your biological family?
I actually share a house with my mother. She's downstairs now. We have a great relationship. My father, I've spoken to him probably 3 times in 35 years. My father and I, we don't fight. We just kind of we have very different views on life, what life is, and what you should do with life. The number one thing for me, I have always said, I will not be my father. My father, I remember my father saying, I love you one time in my life. July 8th, 1978, 8:37 p.m. I remember it because it is the only time that man ever said, I love you to me. And I always said, I'm not going to be that man. I'm not going to make my kids go through life never knowing that I love them, never knowing that I'm proud of them, never knowing that I'm there for them no matter what. And I've never broken that rule or promise. I've been here for my children no matter how difficult it's been, no matter what it cost me financially or job-wise. I've had jobs that I've quit that, sorry, dude, gotta go. Well, you can't just quit your job. Look, but you are my kids, and I'm not putting you over my kids. I can get another job. I can't get another kid. And it's been my biggest thing going through life is at the end of the day, if you don't remember me for anything else other than being a good parent, I'm okay with that. Because that's all I want to be remembered for, truthfully. Like, if I write a great book or make a great movie and you remember me for that, awesome. I'll take it. But if my tombstone says nothing more than amazing father, I'm okay with that too, because that's what my life is about, is being a dad. And, that's the most important thing to me. So, and it all comes from what I dealt with is just, I'll make damn sure my kids never have to go through that. No kid should have to go through it, but I don't have the ability to stop other kids from going through it, but I can damn sure make sure mine never go through it. So, sorry, I don't mean to cry. I just, my kids they're everything to me, and I've raised 8 kids, either through my biological kids or through stepchildren. So parenting it's a big thing for me.
Yeah, it's amazing how sometimes, some people have bad things happen in life and they turn to horrible people because of it. And some people have bad things in life and they say, I choose better for my future. And it sounds like you've really chosen that better road. You've learned from the bad choices of other adults and decided to become a good adult in your own right.
I try. I mean, I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. But even with this divorce I went through last year, I was adamant about, I want sole custody across the board, period. That's it. She can have every physical piece of furniture, the bank accounts, everything. I want sole custody of my son. And the judge is like, why are you so adamant about that? Because the circumstances surrounding this situation right now, I will not have my son subjected to that circus that she's calling a life. He will not suffer mentally because she chose to turn her life into a mess. If my son has nothing else in life other than peace of mind and a safe home, good. I can replace the money. I can buy more furniture. I can get another car. I would take a financial beating. Want my son. And I won. I got sole custody with supervised visitations for her. So, my son is with me. He's happy. He's the most joyful kid you'll ever meet. And that's all that's important to me. So.
Well, and that's what really matters at the end of the day. I haven't met many people who, I've sat at the deathbed of a few men, and I've not met one of them yet who laid there and complained about, not having done enough work or gotten enough toys, and they wanted to get a yacht before they died. Not one of them talked about any of that sort of stuff. It was that legacy they were leaving behind them in the form of children and family, and the things that mattered at the end of life were the people.
Family is everything to me. Like having nice stuff is awesome. And I've got a lot of nice stuff, but I would literally give every bit of it away if it meant the safety of my kids, their well-being, their mental health, whatever. None of it means anything if they're in any kind of danger. So it's just, it is what it is at the end of the day. And my friends know that. My friends know, people who know me know, you can test me in 99 ways. The one way you can't test me is my kids. Don't ever put my kids in danger or the line of fire, because my reaction will not be a reaction you like. You want me to fight? My kids are the one way to do it. Like right now, I'll go from Winnie the Pooh to Kodiak Killer and that quick over my kids, man.
Yeah. I have one last question before we jump out of here. I talk to a lot of dads, part of a dad's group in the leadership team there. And so I meet dads from across the country, across the world, honestly. And some of these guys, I'm going to tell you, that Australian accent is probably the hardest one for me to pull apart so far. But, I talk to a lot of dads, and the most common thing I see across the board is guys who have had that big father wound in their own childhood. And obviously, you've talked about your own. Have you been able to work through that in your own life and move forward, or is that something you're still working on?
I think it's a little of both. I don't think about it a lot. My dad's a truck driver, 52 years. I wanted to be a rock star. That was my plan A, my plan B, and my plan C. I did it up until my sons were born, where it wasn't feasible. And I always said, I'm not going to be a truck driver. I ended up being a truck driver. And I did that for a number of years, and then it tried to kill me. And I decided, okay, let's try something else where chains aren't flying at your head. I don't really think about it a lot. My dad is my dad. I love my dad because he is my father. He gave me life. He taught me a lot of life lessons. But there is that animosity there, and I simply refuse to let it affect who I am as a dad. I keep it inside. So it's there. Absolutely. And I hate that it's there. And I would love to have the opportunity to work it out and whatnot, but he's not that type. My dad, you could sit at a table with my dad for 2 hours and he'll say 4 words. He spent 52 years alone driving truck. So my dad spends 24 hours a day alone in a truck for the most part. He's okay with not saying anything.
From one truck driver to another, I'll tell you, we do spend a lot of time sitting in a truck with a lot of silence in our own heads, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I get where he's coming from. He's always been that way. But my dad is just, he's a rare breed. You're not going to change his mind. He's a Leo, and like I said, he's just, he wants what he wants, and you're not going to change his mind. Nothing you say is going to change that mind. And it's frustrating to me because, hey, this is your grandchild. And he's like, okay, how are you? Okay, gee, don't seem so thrilled to meet your grandchild, and it's just, it is who he is. So I've quit trying. Truthfully, I quit trying a long time ago. and I concentrate on what I can change. I concentrate on what I can be positive about so that they have positivity in their life. They've met my dad. They know my dad, but I don't go to his house. He doesn't come to mine. We don't talk on the phone or anything like that. His new wife that he's been married to for many years now, I graduated with her. So, he's 21 years older than his wife. So it kind of is what it is, really, truthfully. I mean, that's about the only way I can put it is I love him. He's my dad, but I don't want to be him. Like I'm not. Like there's really very few ways that I'm like my father, other than maybe I'm a disciplinarian, as far as the one thing that I've made sure of with my kids is to learn respect for people and things, work hard for it and you'll appreciate it a lot more than if it's just given to you freely. Have respect for other people's property and time. One rule my great grandfather had, and I live by this rule. If you're 15 minutes early, you're 15 minutes late.
He was military, wasn't he?
Actually, he wasn't.
Really?
But that was his rule of thumb. So I am always 15 minutes early, no matter what I do. And that's gone on to my kids is don't show up late. It's a disrespectful to people and their time. Be there, be prepared, be ready to go. Yeah, whether it's a job interview, whatever it is, just let them know that you're there and you're ready to go and get it done and move on. And, this way I've raised my kids is just respect is the biggest thing to me is you're not going to get to respect back all the time, but if you put the respect out there, then you'll get good karma. If they do bad stuff, then that's on them. Let them deal with the negative repercussions of being that bad person. So,
yeah. Well, CJ, I want to thank you for coming in here today and telling your story because these are the stories that people need to hear. Like, your story has a lot of horrible foster parents that were involved in it. And I get it. I don't like those stories. I don't like them a bit. I'm not going to lie, but nobody likes to hear those stories. And that's hopefully more people will hear stuff like this and choose to become that good foster parent who choose to spend their life's energy in doing something that will affect a kid for a lifetime, and in doing so, change generations, literally generations. Because I'm just going to say, I think it's entirely possible your kids would have been different kids if you hadn't had some good influences in your life towards the end of your foster journey.
Oh, absolutely. I would have never had kids. I'd have been, there's no doubt in my mind, without the Davises, I'd have gone to prison or I'd have been dead. I was destructive and I didn't care. There was no point in life to me. Like my goal was destruction and I was very good at it, very disruptive, very, even not even physical destruction, but just being in a classroom. I was the kid who they showed us the Miracle Worker movie in a class. Helen Keller, the cute little blind girl who learned to read and write. Hey, did you know when Helen Keller grew up, she was a hardcore communist who wrote 3 books about overthrowing the U.S. government? This was in 1986. You couldn't use the word communist back then. It was a bad word. So thrown out of class, taken to the office because I was disruptive. How did you even know that? I read a lot. You shouldn't be reading those kind of books. Why are you telling a kid that he shouldn't be reading books? Like that's the most asinine thing I've ever heard. You should be telling kids to read books. Smarter kids means a smarter society. A smarter society means we're better off, so I run against people like that all through my teenage years. So I was angry all the time because I had to deal with stupid people. And the more I was angry, the more I was destructive or disruptive. And I went from foster home to foster home to foster home to foster home because of it. Because nobody wanted the smart ass kid or the sarcastic kid or the kid who would never shut up or the kid who, you know, was just going to be a pain in their ass, basically. So, you know, that's kind of the story of my life, you know, is like,
it seems like you've turned that around quite a bit. Yeah. I know we talked before we jumped into this. You have a few things going on in your life, some things that you like to do. You have a couple of your own podcasts and a YouTube channel website. Yeah. Why don't you put, and I'll make certain all these are in the show notes. So if anybody wants to go find CJ's stuff, you'll find links to it in the show notes. But why don't you tell everybody where they can find it?
Yeah, if you go on YouTube, you can find me Music God Reacts. I do reaction videos. Right now it's music, a lot of Japanese metal, a lot of stuff from all over the world. But we are going to get into food stuff. We're going to get into weird drinks. And I'm obsessed with Asian stuff. You're going to see me eating all kinds of weird noodles and hot stuff and drinks and that kind of stuff from the Philippines and Thailand and Japan and China and all of that. I have a podcast called The Noise Report, where I interview really cool and interesting people, a lot of rock stars. I've interviewed Lloyd Kaufman, who did the Toxic Avenger movies. I have interviewed a lot of my big musical heroes. I've interviewed, you know, authors who are just starting out. I don't care how famous you are. It's all about life stories and life experiences and sharing those and bettering each other through learning about different cultures and different life experiences. Because, hey, maybe I have a piece of knowledge you need. Maybe you have a piece of knowledge I need. And that's how you learn. That's how you become a better person, is through knowledge. And knowledge should be shared freely and openly all the time. So those are my main two things that you can find me. If you just look up Music God CJ Playing online, I'm all over the place. Riot on the Set. Riot on the Set media.rocks is my main website. Music reviews, all of that fun stuff where I ramble about music and, you know, stuff that I love, stuff that I hate, stuff that I make fun of. You know, imagine George Carlin as a music reviewer, and that's kind of what I go for most of the time. But
yeah, I miss George Carlin.
Oh man, so far ahead of his time. John Panette is the one that I miss so much. John Panette I got to meet John Panette and actually take him out to a food festival, and just such an amazing person. I was absolutely devastated when John died. That you know, he just a true amazing human being. So
yeah, I always enjoyed his stuff.
Yeah. You go now. You came 3 hours. But yeah, my favorite comedian of all time by far. But George is up there as well. George, just because, you know, knowledge. And George was
an interesting guy, and I would have loved to hear his take on today's culture. But
oh my God,
I think
he would be losing his mind with everything going on. Like George and Sam Kinison both. Like those are the two comedians that if I could bring them back, I would bring those two back, because I would love to hear their take on everything going on. You know, Carlin because of the more political side, but Kinison just because, you know, the music side and the movie side and the whole take on Disney and everything they have going on. Kinison would just be losing his mind over it. Like, you know, like, so.
Yes. It's sad that a lot of our heroes in our culture are starting to pass away now, but you know, that's the way that the world works, and we're just going to move through that period of life. But yeah, thank you so much for your time though.
Thank you guys for having me, man. I don't get to go on shows like this that often. Like I get to talk about music on a lot of shows, you know, and kind of flex my musical knowledge, but I don't get to talk about the deeper stuff or the more interesting stuff or to really share life experiences and kind of like, look, even through the bad, you can come out the other side and make good of it. So I'm very thankful that you guys allowed me to do this.
Okay, Foster Care Nation, thank you for listening to CJ's story. Now take his knowledge and wisdom to heart so you can create love and healing in your family and community. Be sure to come back next week. We have new episodes every Tuesday. If you'd like to share your story as a guest, you can reach us at jason@fostercarenation.com. You can connect with other like-minded people on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/fostercareuj. Don't forget, we have a Patreon account where you can support our mission for as little as $5 a month. It's at patreon.com/fostercarenation. The links to everything are in the show notes in your podcast player or at fostercarenation.com. And as always,
you are so super awesome. I think you guys so cool. Yeah. Thank you for listening. Thanks.
Unparalleled Studios.